Hi ladies, it's good to be with you today. A couple of you have asked where exactly I am. You've seen me record in just about every room in the house because some days we need to be some different places. But today and last week we are upstairs in what is known as the guest room, office, TV studio, master bedroom, bathroom. Let me explain that. We have a bump up on our house, and that's something that's new to me, not being from California, but those of you who live here know what that is. It's a room that's put in, just bumped up from the first floor of the house, and that room had been our guest room. Lovely guest room with a small bath right off it. It's great. Well, when coronavirus hit, we moved a desk up there too, so it could be Brian's office. So Brian's been working up here since March. And then we're having our bathroom, the master bath, redone, even as I speak. And so it's become impossible to record downstairs with the sound of jackhammers and interruptions from tradespeople. And we have had to actually move upstairs to use this as our bedroom and bathroom too, because of the construction. So welcome to my world. I'm a person who likes order. Chaos is crazy for me. But we're making do, and we're grateful we have a spot. So welcome to the Eckelman home. It's good to be with you. Now we're going to talk about Jeremiah chapter 7 today. So if you have a Bible, please get it opened to Jeremiah chapter 7. Now I've been thinking a lot about things this week that give me confidence, or the things in which I put my trust. It's been it's been a trying time, and some of the things which I depend on have fallen apart, like having a house where I could record in peace and quiet. So I've been thinking about things that I trust specifically to keep me safe, and I'm realizing that they're not all that dependable. I mean, after all, we're in California. An earthquake could strike at any moment. Please, Lord. And our shelters would no longer be safe. We live in tumultuous political times, and there have been times in the last few weeks I haven't felt particularly safe, at least not that my government was safe. We also realized during COVID that a sudden illness can strike, and it can completely change your life and the lives of those you love. It could wipe out your savings. It could cause the death, the loss of someone important to you. Even relationships that we depend on are not safe when we can no longer be with people that we really love. The only thing in this world that is fail-safe, the only thing, is the rock upon which we depend, our Lord, and our relationship with Him. This is a lesson we all need to learn. And this is a lesson that the people Jeremiah spoke to also needed to learn. In one of his famous prophecies, what's called the Temple Prophecy, and this is what we'll be looking at in chapter 7, he spoke directly to the people about what they put their trust in. Last week we had an overview of the prophet and the times in which he lived, and today we're going to focus on that one prophecy, Jeremiah 7, 1 through 15, also called the Temple Prophecy. Now Jeremiah, as you remember, began his ministry as the world powers erupted into chaos. We talked about Babylonia, we talked about Assyria, I talked about Egypt. I hope I didn't confuse you completely. The picture I wanted to give to you is that Judah was surrounded by competing world powers, and Judah would occasionally ally with one or the other, whoever they thought was going to come out on top. And it did not work well for Judah. And this was a very rough time for what we know as Judah, or the southern kingdom. This is where Jeremiah ministered. And these are the times in which he ministered through several kings, through several rulers. Excuse me. His work as a prophet was to call people back into repentance, to warn them of the coming Babylonian occupation, and to talk to them about the restoration that God would bring about after that occupation. Jeremiah began his ministry during the reign of King Uzziah, who, as we remember, instituted many reforms, repaired the temple, encouraged the people to right practice, even as he discovered the law in the temple, and suddenly the temple was rebuilt, restored, cleansed, and worship was happening once again in the temple. But lest you get the idea that everything was fine, I want to remind you that even though the temple was restored to worship and the people did come and make a promise again to covenant themselves to the Lord, not everyone followed those promises, and not everyone stayed true. In fact, during the reign of the next king, King Jehoiakim, and those who followed, Judah would slip back into her old idolatrous ways. She still had this habit, however, of going through the motions of worship at the temple. So why the temple? Well, the temple, as you remember, was the center point of the Judean religion. It was the center point for the whole people, because when they were faithfully worshiping the Lord, it was a source of pride and comfort. It symbolized God's special relationship with the Jewish people. It still does. It symbolized the covenants or the promises that they made, God and the people, one to another, and the sacrificial system that maintained the relationship between a holy God and an imperfect people. As you recall, King Uzziah again rediscovered the law in the ruins of the temple that he rebuilt, and temple worship was fully restored. However, sinful practices would continue throughout Judea, and the temple stood as a powerful symbol. A powerful symbol, but like all symbols, sometimes we come to worship the symbol more than that for which it stands. We can worship the symbol more than that for which it stands. This was the case then, it certainly can be the case now. Enter Jeremiah and the message from the Lord. Jeremiah 7, again as known as the temple sermon. Jeremiah stands at the gates of the temple as the people enter the temple, and he warns them against trusting in religious practice to win God's favor. He's bringing this message directly from God. This is prophecy. It's not Jeremiah giving what he thinks will be a great sermon. It's the Lord speaking directly through him. I'm going to give a kind of commentary on these verses as we go through them. So again, pick up your Bible and turn please to chapter 7 in Jeremiah. And it begins. This is the word that came to Jeremiah from the Lord. Stand at the gate of the Lord's house and there proclaim this message. Hear the word of the Lord, all you people of Judah who come through these gates to worship the Lord. This is what the Lord Almighty, the God of Israel, says to you. Reform your ways and your actions, and I will let you live in this place. We start off strong. The text is clear. The message comes from the Lord. The text is clear. The instructions are clear. Jeremiah is to go and stand at the gate of the Lord's house, the temple gate, probably the gate at the outer courtyard. This is significant because all people who come to worship, men, women, priests, lay people, everyone had to go through this gate. So the message was to all of Jerusalem, to all of Judea, not just to the elite, but everyone needed to hear this message. And the message was, well, it's pretty unequivocal. And God would speak directly through his prophet. Now, Jeremiah might have been shy. He might have been fearful. He might have just been tired and exhausted and not wanted to deliver this message, knowing that it probably wouldn't go over too well. However, he was faithful and he did the job the Lord called him to. And notice this message was to people who had come to worship. It was for the people who were practicing, the people who were religious, not for those who stayed home during the high holy days, but the people who came to worship the Lord. Because even though they were faithful in religious practices, they could be faithless in their hearts. We are the same way. The theme of the prophecy stated right off. Reform your ways, reform your actions. I will let you continue to live in this place, meaning the promised or the Holy Land. The implication is if they do not reform, they will no longer be allowed to live in the Holy Land. Now here God's reminding the people of what I call the transactional relationship of a covenant. There are promises made, and the covenant is broken if one party breaks their promises. God had not broken his, but the people had broken theirs. God is looking for faithful people, faithful living, not people who are faithful in religious practice alone. And the continued occupation of the promised land is dependent on this faithfulness. Now move to Jeremiah 7 verse 4. Do not trust in deceptive words and say, this is the temple of the Lord, the temple of the Lord, the temple of the Lord. This phrase, which was repeated 3 times, is probably a chant that was developed by the Jewish people and was repeated during worship. The words are called deceptive, however, probably because they originated with false prophets, and yes, there were false prophets then too, who assured the people that the temple was indestructible, that they would always have it. It was the temple of the Lord. It was the permanent dwelling place of the Lord. The Lord wants to dwell, however, as we know, among his people, not within a building. Haven't we seen this during this past year? Here we've been forced to give up gathering together and group worship. We've been forced to even go on Zoom to do our Bible study. We've had to watch sermons online, many of us. We have had to abandon our building in many ways, but we have not abandoned our church, because the church is the people among whom the Lord dwells. Even these things today are teaching us that the Lord is in our midst. In Jeremiah 7, verse 5 through 6, look at that with me, please. If you really change your ways and your actions, and you deal with each other justly, if you do not oppress the alien, the fatherless, or the widow, and do not shed innocent blood in this place, and if you do not follow other gods to your own harm, then I will let you live in this place, in this land that I gave your forefathers forever and ever. God is really bringing home the importance of ethical behavior. How you behave matters to God. Treating the powerless and the weak with justice is close to his heart. It was then, it is now. How we deal with others in our business relationships, in our neighborhoods, in our workplaces, our homes, matters to God. Especially matters because it shows if our lives have truly been transformed, if we've become more like Jesus. And this is what pleases God. As the prophet Micah said later on, this is what the Lord requires of you, to do justice, love mercy, and act humbly with your Lord. It's how we behave that pleases God. And don't let it slip by verse 6. This really struck me when it says, you follow other gods to your own harm. God is jealous. Yes, he wants our worship, but he wants that because he knows how harmful it is to us to put our trust in other things, other gods. He wants us to avoid that harm. In Jeremiah 7:7, we read again, then I will let you live in this place, in the land I gave your forefathers forever and ever. This obedience, this caring for the poor, this obeying the laws of God will allow the people of Judea to stay in the land, but disobedience will mean they can no longer stay. In Jeremiah 7, verse 8 through 10, let's read that together. But look, you are trusting in deceptive words. Here we have that phrase again, deceptive words that are worthless. Will you steal and murder, commit adultery and perjury, burn incense to Baal, and follow other gods you have not known, and then come and stand before me in this house which bears my name, and say, we are safe to do all these detestable things? Whoa. God is asking questions of the people. He's talking again about deceptive words, teachings by false prophets, words that bring comfort and help people to feel relaxed and trusting things other than God, to believe that their behavior does not matter, words that were false. We serve a jealous God, as I said. He wants to be our ultimate priority. And when we trust in something else, when we trust in something that is ultimately insubstantial or harmful, no matter what the false prophets of our generation say, we are displeasing God. Jeremiah 7, 9, and 10. Will you steal and murder, commit adultery and perjury? Will you burn incense to Baal? Will you follow other gods you've not known? We've read that. Will you come and stand before me in this house? Will you do all these things? Did you really think that the 10 Commandments were the 10 suggestions? Did you really think this was optional? No. God does not want us to do these things. You're free from your sins, not free to sin. There's a difference. And Jeremiah 7:11. Oh boy, this is a familiar phrase. Has this house which bears my name, become a den of robbers to you? But I've been watching, declares the Lord. Remember when Jesus threw the money changers out of the temple? And he said this house that should be a house of prayer has become a den of robbers or a den of thieves? He was quoting this very verse from Jeremiah. My house shall be a house of prayer. And it wasn't. And the people were treating the temple like a robber would treat a den that they would retreat to for safety. They won't catch me here. I'm safe to go out and commit further robberies and acts of evil because I have this place that keeps me safe. The people were feeling like they could do whatever they wanted, Monday through Saturday, if you will, as long as they showed up on Sunday morning. Now, I know the holy day was not Sunday morning, but I'm trying to relate it to our lives. Now, the people, they would continue to question, even after all these deceptive words, whether their temple would endure forever, whether God would allow them to continue like this. Unless they think that, Jeremiah reminds them of the experience in Shiloh. In chapter 12, go now to the place in Shiloh where I first made a dwelling for my name, and see what I did to it because of the wickedness of my people Israel. While you were doing all these things, declares the Lord, I spoke to you again and again, but you did not listen. I called to you, but you did not answer. Therefore, what I did to Shiloh, I will now do to the house that bears my name, the temple you trust in, the place I gave to you and your fathers. I will thrust you from my presence, just as I did all your brothers, the people of Ephraim. Whoa. Now Shiloh, you remember, was a center for worship for about 400 years. It was where the Ark of the Covenant was located. And it was the place where the people before King David built the temple. It is where they worshipped. However, its ruins will now lie, and the people know this, its ruins are lying in the conquered land of the northern kingdom. There is no more Shiloh. There is no place to worship there. The people of Jerusalem thought they were better than the northern kingdom. They thought that what happened to the northern kingdom would never happen to them, but God confronts them with their pride and their confidence by drawing a comparison between Shiloh and Jerusalem, by drawing a comparison between the temple or the tent of the ark and the temple built by David. He says they will both be destroyed. The point being, if he didn't spare Shiloh, why would he spare Jerusalem? The future for the people of Judea is not bright. The prophet Jeremiah called them to task, and his message was not a pleasant one. I cannot imagine the people lined up outside the temple gate to shake his hand and say, "Nice sermon, Pastor." No. The Lord saw that his people were trusting in religious rituals and religious practices without living lives that corresponded to God's law. So he would take the temple, the very center of their religion, away from them. And he didn't do this because he wanted to take away his presence, his mercy, or his grace. Those endure. Even when the people are exiled to Babylon, God is with them. But he didn't give away, he didn't want to give away his relationship with them. He removed their ability to continue to substitute the practice of religion for true worship of the Lord. He removed that by removing the temple. And he warned them again and again that this would happen. What lesson is there for us during this time of quarantine and isolation from our usual religious routines? For myself, it feels as if God has shaken up my decades-long practice of going to church and going to Bible studies and being with the people of God. He's shaken it up so that I can reconsider where the foundation lies for my life. It's not in practice. It's not in showing up for events. It's not even for giving. But it is in my relationship with Jesus Christ. My relationship that has made me right with God because of the sacrifice, the death, and the resurrection of Jesus Christ. I need to be in relationship with God and his people based on that, not on doing things, even good things, religious things. They are simply there to help me form that relationship. But being a church member, being a pastor's wife, being a Presbyterian who can even spell the word does not make me right with God. Only Jesus does. So this week I challenge you to imagine yourself among that crowd going into the temple who heard Jeremiah for the very first time. What in his words might have made you uncomfortable? Are you in any way guilty of dealing in a poor way with the powerless and the weak? Are you seeking to walk mercifully and humbly? Or are you trusting in your practice of even good things, of religion? Are you trusting in that to save you? Have you looked to other gods for security? Consider that in your life. If Jeremiah were speaking to you today, how would you evaluate your relationship with the Lord? I encourage you to do like I did, to repent, to come back to God as the source of your life, to align your life with his purposes and put your trust in him alone. It's never too late to do that. This may be the day for you. Thank you, ladies, for listening. I pray that you have a wonderful conversation with one another and that you have just a fabulous week. I look forward to being with you next Tuesday. God bless you.